For as long as I can remember, I've always loved Christmas stories. When I was in 3rd grade, our teacher read The Polar Express to my class, and I was enchanted. The picture that story painted in my mind was greater than anything CGI could ever create. Sadly, that remained the case when the movie version came out, which I do not consider a classic. For me, the best Christmas movies don't look like this. They look like this. I'm talking about movies like The Snowman.
We're walking in the
A Christmas Story.
Fragile. That must be Italian.
I think that's Mr. Fragile.
A Charlie Brown Christmas.
Everything I do turns into a disaster. I guess I really don't know what Christmas is all about.
It's a Wonderful Life.
George Bailey, I'll love you till the day I die.
And of course, A Christmas Carol.
Why, yours, Ebenezer. The richest man in the cemetery.
I've always liked the Disney version the best, but the Muppets movie with Michael Caine definitely deserves a shout out too. And I haven't even mentioned all these wonderfully weird claymation movies that as a child I found magical.
I'd like to be a dentist.
And just a little creepy. Yet amongst all these timeless stories, there's one that always stood out for me. And no, I am not talking about Die Hard.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Every year, someone says Die Hard is the greatest Christmas movie. It's not, okay? It's not a Christmas movie at all. It's an awesome action movie, but it could have taken place any time of the year.
Got invited to the Christmas party by mistake.
What's next? You gonna tell me Prometheus is a Christmas movie?
It's Christmas.
And anyway, I'm not here to argue about what is or isn't a Christmas movie. I'm here to talk about the greatest Christmas movie, which as far as I'm concerned is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And just so we're clear, I'm not talking about this. Or this, I'm talking about the original 1966 animated classic based on the book of the same name by the one and only Theodore Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss, the brilliant poet, illustrator, storyteller, and titan of children's literature. The guy authored so many great books, and The Grinch is one of his best, but unlike The Polar Express, where the screen adaptation left a lot to be desired, the animated version of The Grinch doesn't just live up to the book, it exceeds it. Because as great as the book is, it doesn't have this wonderful hand-drawn animation, or these excellent voice performances,
Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here.
or this unforgettable music.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Those qualities, for me, make the movie superior to the book, even though they tell the exact same story. But while the positives of the animation, voice performances, and music are all self-evident as to what makes the story itself so compelling, that's a bit harder to figure out. After all, the plot is dead simple. I'm sure you know it by heart. Every year the Who's drive the Grinch crazy by celebrating Christmas, until one year he decides he's had enough and vows to stop it. To do so, he comes up with an ingenious plan to disguise himself as Santa, sneak into Whoville on Christmas Eve, and commit grand larceny. But just before he can add destruction of property to his list of crimes, he hears the Who's singing and has a change of heart. That's pretty much it. That's the tale. We call it a children's book, but it's really just a short story. In fact, it's pretty short even for a short story. It's 1,355 words. That's less than half the length of The Necklace, and yet within those 1,355 words is arguably the greatest Christmas story ever. As to why the story works so well, the answer is every bit as ingenious as the Grinch's plan. Don't be fooled by these silly-sounding words and funny pictures.
They'll beat them blum bloopers. They'll whack the who.
The story is a lot more sophisticated than you might think. Despite the simplicity of the plot, what you see is not what you get. Throughout the story, we're constantly reminded that the Grinch is the bad guy, the Who's are his victims, and the Grinch is stealing Christmas, but none of those things are actually true. It's the Grinch who's the victim, the Who's are the instigators, and the Grinch couldn't have stolen Christmas if he wanted to, which he did. The whole point of the story is you can't steal Christmas because the true meaning goes back to the original reason people celebrated the passing of the winter solstice. You and those you care about made it through the darkest, coldest time of the year, so, give thanks and be merry. That's what the Grinch eventually learns, and what we inadvertently learn with him. The happy ending is a big part of why the Grinch is such a beloved character, but it's not the only reason. If it was, you'd only like the Grinch the second time you saw the movie, which is clearly not the case. I honestly don't remember the first time I saw this, but I refuse to believe I ever hated hated the Grinch. He's always been a part of Christmas for me. He's an ornament on the tree, he's a blanket, a pillow, he's whatever this is. I even had a Grinch stuffed animal when I was a kid, which I'm seriously sad I can't find. The Grinch is so ubiquitous that it's easy to forget he spends the majority of his one and only story resenting the happiness of others, planning a serious crime, and breaking into the homes of completely undeserving victims with the sole intention of hurting their feelings. Worse, he straight up loves every minute of it, and worse than that, so do we. It's a lot of fun to watch the Grinch rob the Who's blind. It kind of makes you wonder, why do we enjoy this so much, especially as children? What does it say about us as a society that we love a character who is so relentlessly cruel? Well, maybe nothing. At least nothing bad. There's probably more than one reason we enjoy this, like if you have lousy neighbors, then watching this is quite cathartic. And yet I think the real reason we love the Grinch is that even as children, we understand that he's a sympathetic character. He lives all alone in this desolate mountain, while just next door is a bustling town filled with the world's happiest people who every year throw a gigantic bash that he cannot help but notice. How would you feel if you had nothing to do on a Friday night and your neighbors threw the loudest party and didn't invite you? You'd probably look something like this. That's what's so clever about the story. Dr. Seuss knew the Grinch was relatable, so he did everything in his power to disguise that, from the way the Grinch looks, to how he behaves, to this incredible song that does nothing but revel in how much of a jerk he is.
Your brain is full of spiders, you've got garlic in your soul.
Come on, your brain is filled with garlic, you have spiders in your soul. These lyrics are brilliant, they are visceral, and they're all subterfuge. They overstate the case against the Grinch. Think about it. If these are the lyrics that describe the Grinch, what are the lyrics that describe Hannibal Lecter or the Joker? What are their brains filled with? I don't want to give the Grinch a complete pass here. He does go on a massive crime spree after all. But it's worth noting that unlike these two, he never physically hurts anyone. He doesn't even verbally berate anyone. The only Who that he actually talks to is little Cindy Lou Who, and he's perfectly pleasant to her.
There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side.
Once you get past the fact that he's broken into her home and he's lying through his teeth. The only character that he directly treats badly is his poor dog Max. But aside from that, the Grinch's actions don't justify this song because the Grinch isn't as bad as you think. Again, you could argue he's the victim. If the Who's didn't provoke him, he likely wouldn't have retaliated. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean the Who's are the bad guys either. They're about as innocent as it gets. All they do is hold hands and sing songs and love Christmas, but that actually makes them the perfect antagonists. Great characters don't exist in a vacuum. They're defined by who or what opposes them. Think of the interrogation scene in The Dark Knight. The Joker actually says,
"You complete me."
That's not just true for the Joker personally, it's true for the story as a whole. Both characters are necessary to create the central conflict, whereas lesser stories think this dynamic is all about power versus more power. What really makes antagonistic relationships compelling is when the characters are opposites, and it doesn't get much more opposite than the Grinch and the Who's. Everything the Who's enjoy, the Grinch hates. Everything the Who's value, the Grinch detests. And while it may seem like the Who's are hopelessly overmatched, since even if they caught the Grinch stealing, it's hard to imagine them doing anything about it, but once again, that's what the story wants you to think. You're supposed to view the Grinch as the big bad villain and the Who's as helpless victims, when in reality, it's the other way around. Consider how obsessed the Grinch is with the Who's, while it's unclear if the Who's even know who the Grinch is. Without even trying to, they prevent the Grinch from getting what he wants, and wants is the operable word, because what he wants and what he needs are also opposites. The Grinch wants the Who's to stop celebrating Christmas, stop enjoying each other's company, basically be as miserable as he is. What he needs, however, is to connect with others and belong to something greater than himself. In short, he needs the same thing we all need. That's why even as children, instead of fearing the Grinch, we want to give him a hug. Deep down, when you look at this grouchy, scowling, misanthropic, antisocial monster, you see You see what would happen if you cut yourself off from the world and only saw the bad in life. You'd become the Grinch. That the story absolutely meets but also cleverly subverts our expectations, and that it teaches us a valuable lesson along the way without us realizing we were even being taught, and that it does so using incredible animation, voice performances, and music, is why I consider How the Grinch Stole Christmas the greatest Christmas movie. Now, I could stop here, and maybe I should, but I can't help it. I have to at least briefly address the remakes, and why I think they failed for different yet somehow identical reasons. The live-action version, which a lot of people like for some reason, and which features an unrecognizable Jim Carrey doing a bad Sean Connery impression,
I've got all the company I need right here,
made the Grinch too mean. I don't want to give this guy a hug. Ditto that for the Who's. These guys are supposed to be the opposite of the Grinch, but here they're creepy and negative. The whole movie is. It looks like what a migraine feels like. And why is the Grinch singing the Grinch song about himself in the third person? How does that make any sense? And as for the CGI Grinch, he's too nice. I don't want to put a positive spin on animal cruelty, but which of these characters seems more likely to commit 500 home invasions in a row? Unlike the original story, which hid how sympathetic the Grinch is, this one makes it front and center. It gives him this backstory of how he grew up in an orphanage and had to spend Christmas by himself, which makes his eventual change of heart way too obvious. And since when is the Grinch the world's greatest inventor? If he was, couldn't he have invented a sled that didn't need to be pulled by a 20-pound dog? I could keep going, but I won't, because I honestly think these movies were doomed to fail no matter what. Just look at how long they are. The live-action version is 105 minutes, the CGI remake is 186 minutes, whereas the original isn't even a half hour. Because it was made for television. It had to fit into a 30-minute slot with commercials, and that mandate was a blessing. The only way to stretch 1,355 words into a feature-length movie is to make massive changes to the story and add a ton of filler.
It's about my mom.
Unsurprisingly, the writers struggled to do that in a compelling way. The original, however, thanks to its short length, was able to tell the story exactly the way it was meant to be told, and because of that, the darkest, coldest time of the year is a little bit brighter.